So the Chiefs beat the Bengals in a game that went down to the wire per usual, and while there were some standout moments, there are definitely some concerns that still need to be addressed. One of the biggest of those is filling the hole left by a tough injury of a key starter. Well, what if I told you KC may be bringing back a very familiar face to try and make things work while said player is out on IR? I'll talk about all that and more as I recap this crazy Week 2 victory, but first, how about those? All right, let's get straight into it. This game was insane, down to the wire, had my heart rate way too high, didn't need to happen, but this is what happens when the Bengals and a healthy Burrow play the Kansas City Chiefs. The first play of the game actually involved a fumble that sadly flew out of bounds by Cincy. Nick Bolton made a leaping PBU on 3rd and 4 that he regretted batting down because it could have been a potential interception. However, Cincy went for it on 4th and 4, and Gesicki, their tight end, narrowly caught this pass as Chamari Connor swiped at it and Justin Reed slipped and fell to the ground. This led to a big gain all the way to the 6-yard line, but thankfully KC's defense held Cincy to a field goal due to Trent McDuffie's PBU preventing a Jamar Chase touchdown and Karlaftis nearly sacking Burrow on 3rd down. The intent for the Bengals, though, was clear on this drive from the jump, and it was to use their tight ends to take advantage of various Chiefs safeties and linebackers, depending on the matchup, like the Ravens did with Isaiah Likely, and it was definitely an effective tactic throughout the game. It's actually a big weakness of the Chiefs defense that I'll talk about later on in this video. On the flip side, KC's offense wanted to impose their will on the ground, taking advantage of the Bengals D-line, at least the interior, that is a bit banged up due to injuries. That's why the Chiefs ran the ball 9 times out of 16 plays on the first drive, with Pacheco picking up several great chunks, Carson Steele converting a 2nd and 1, quick passes to Rice and Watson, and like the Bengals, KC opted to go for it on 4th down with Steele getting the 1 yard needed. 3 plays later, though, Andy opted to kick a field goal when they couldn't pound the ball into the end zone to tie the game at 3 apiece. The crowd did not like that, though, and this is where I wish the Chiefs, maybe had the quarterback sneak installed into their playbook. Mahomes can't do it. I get it. But what about Carson Wentz? That man is one of the most effective quarterbacks at the sneak. Maybe later on in the season or the playoffs we'll see it, but we did not see it in yesterday's game. I do wish they would have went for it, shown a little bit more aggression here against a team that plays them so tough. Obviously, it worked out at the end of the day, but I was surprised by the conservative play call from Andy Reid and company. Though, to be fair, they tried a bunch of times to get in the end zone there and just couldn't do it. Anyway, since he went 3 and out thanks to the D-line on 3rd down, but 1 play later, Mahomes threw a disgusting interception, not looking for the backside linebacker as he tried to force one in to Travis Kelce. And you can see via some coaches' film here that there were multiple options on this play he could have went to. Could have been Justin Watson on one side, Xavier Worthy on the other. Even Pacheco was open on a check down. So an uncharacteristically bad decision from Patrick, but one that has now happened in back-to-back games. Burrow made them pay for that turnover, by the way, matriculating the ball into the red zone on a short field and throwing a strike to Yoshivas on 3rd and goal with Najee Johnson the closest in coverage. Thankfully, Mahomes shook off that ugly INT on this drive, converting a clutch 3rd and 5 with his legs, and a few plays later, caught Cincy's secondary sleeping. Rice gave a move to the inside and took off down the left sideline. Mahomes saw that and threw an absolutely perfect pass to Rice for a 44-yard score to tie things at 10 each. Cam Taylor-Britt was the defensive back in coverage, by the way, the guy that Rice torched last year on a similar play. Jamar Chase then caught a pass for 12 yards and flapped his gums per usual. Then Chase actually grabbed McDuffie on his way to the ground on this play here, and somehow McDuffie was flagged for defensive pass interference. It was an atrocious miss by the officials here. That should have been OPI on Chase, but hey, you can't win them all, and Jamar Chase would mess around and find out later on in this game, that little baby. Thankfully, since he was held to just 3 after Karlaftis and Chris Jones got home to Burrow on 3rd down, so the penalty didn't help them all that much. Chris Jones honestly made several standout plays in this game, a game that ended once again in wild fashion. And from here, I've got A lot to talk about, from Chamari Connor stepping up on multiple plays, Kinglsey Suamataia getting benched, Jamar Chase having a literal meltdown, and more. But before I do, if you want to meet your nutrition goals easier than ever by having fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals shipped right to your doorstep, then look no further than to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success, allowing you to skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. I personally love them because I can get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes time, which allows for deliciously quick lunches and keeps me fueled to get back downstairs to the office here pronto so I can create more content for you all. Plus, Factor has over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more. They also have 60 add-ons every week and are flexible enough to allow me to adjust my order size to enjoy with the fam if I want, or even skip a week when something comes up. All in all, Factor fits a variety of lifestyles, though mine personally is more low carb. That's why I opt for the keto meals, which are fantastic. The Tex-Mex beef bowl is one of my favorites, though I haven't really had a meal I didn't like after using Factor for many months. I also really enjoy their cold pressed juices to sip on later in the afternoon to help keep me going. And if you want to enjoy great meals like these and save time on grocery trips, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code HBTC50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code HBTC50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. All right, after this field goal, KC got the ball back with 4 minutes to go in the half and an opportunity to double dip. They could drive down the field and get some points on the board. Then they get the ball back to start the third quarter. Well, just 4 plays into this drive, sadly, the rookie Carson Steele fumbled and the Bengals came out of the pile with the football. Steele basically didn't keep 2 hands on the ball and Pratt punched it out perfectly. So it was on Steele, but you're going to have these growing pains as a rookie, and he's going to learn from this one for sure. Nick Bolton then pile drove All Jr. into the ground on a failed screen pass, but Gesicki caught another pass, which brought Cincy up to over 100 receiving yards from Burrow to tight ends alone in the first half. That is insane. The defense held them to just 3, though, to make it 16-10, Chiefs trailing by 6. So, with 1.5 minutes left in the half and a timeout, could the Chiefs get some points on the board? Long story short, no, they could not. The drive started out hot, but Trey Hendrickson started to impact KC's passing game, schooling Kinglsey Suamataia off the edge on back-to-back plays. The first, he nearly sacked Mahomes on 2nd down, and then on the next play, he drilled him for a sack and a big loss. That took them out of field goal range, even though they brought Harrison Butker out to potentially attempt a 68-yard field goal. They changed their mind, though, and opted to punt, which essentially ended the half. The break did KC some good, though, because Worthy had a nice 12-yard catch and run. Then several runs brought them up to the 36, and on 4th and 1, Carson Steele got a redemption handoff here for 5 yards with Leo Chanel, the linebacker, in there playing fullback. That was pretty fun to see. Back-to-back Pacheco plays got KC to the 4, and a couple plays later, Kelce nearly scored. Leo Chanel came back out with KC showing heavy run due to multiple players in the backfield. But that was all window dressing to set up a big boy score to Wanye Morris, who was an eligible receiver on the play. Worth noting, Travis Kelce was also wide open in case Mahomes didn't like the Wanye option, and that brought KC up 17-16. KC's secondary was then the ones caught sleeping, like Cam Taylor-Britt earlier, as Burrow connected deep down the field to Jermaine Burton for 47 yards on 1st down. Jalen Watson was not prepared for that one, and ultimately, that helped lead to a Bengals touchdown thanks to more tight end work, a 3rd and 2 scramble for the first. Nice play here by Burrow to avoid pressure that was all over him. And Yoshivas snagged his 2nd TD pass here on 4th and goal. KC held strong on so many plays that the D-line seemed completely gassed, giving Burrow a very clean pocket, and Yoshivas had his 2nd score of the game. Well, that would have made things 23-17, Cincy up, but Evan McPherson, their kicker, missed the extra point and KC was trailing by just 5. Remember that missed extra point, though, because that would cost the Bengals severely. Things took a scary turn a few plays later for KC when Mahomes threw another interception, but an illegal contact call, a bit of a soft call, on Kelce negated that to move the chains. Kinglsey Suamataia, however, was caught for holding once again, putting Hendrickson in a literal headlock. This isn't WWE. You can't do that. And Mahomes ended up throwing an INT anyway on this drive to Cam Taylor-Britt, who made a hell of a one-handed catch to get the pick. Mahomes was targeting Xavier Worthy up the left sideline, but appeared to underthrow him. And this is where things started to look bleak for KC to end the third quarter. The Bengals had the ball back up 5 and had the opportunity to make this at least an 8-point game, maybe worse. Thankfully, though, Mike Dana actually strip-sacked Joe Burrow here on 3rd and 10, a perfectly timed move. Joe Burrow lost control, and safety Chamari Connor picked that ball up and took it to the house. I mean, what a freaking play by the defense here. This really helped swing the game back in KC's favor, negating a costly turnover from Mahomes on offense. And after review, the play stood, and KC was then up 23-22. They tried to go for a 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game, but they couldn't get it done. No dice, 1-point game. And Drew Tranquill then missed a costly tackle, allowing Moss to get 13 yards. Jamar Chase got involved for a first down. Orlando Brown Jr. backed them up with a hold. And then Gesicki somersaulted for 8 yards. Then we got to talk about this one. Jamar Chase had a literal mental breakdown on the field. He caught a quick pass here from Burrow with Trent McDuffie making a solid tackle that I think Jamar Chase truly thought was a hip drop tackle. That pissed him off and he wanted a flag and was absolutely furious when he didn't get one. This resulted in Chase completely losing his mind, ignoring Burrow, who wanted him back in the huddle, probably telling him to shut up, and even pushed him back more than once. And this ended up costing Cincy big time. Chase drew a 15-yard flag for what was later explained for abusive language. I mean, this was embarrassing and quite sad to see Chase have no respect and regard for the leader of his team in Joe Burrow. And this made things pretty bad for Cincy. 3rd and 22, and while McPherson was able to knock in a 53-yard field goal after this, Chase single-handedly killed that drive. I mean, he was still crying on the sideline as the field goal was made, refused to answer questions afterwards by the media, and is probably actually still shedding real tears right now. But McDuffie made no dirty tackle. And speaking of players single-handedly making game-changing plays, Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson really started to heat up. I mean, it was seen right before halftime and then just continued. He sacked Mahomes on 2nd down here for a loss of 4. Then after an incredible conversion to Travis Kelce to get them deep into Cincy territory, Kingsley got flagged for holding. This set up a long 3rd and 20, with Kingsley actually being pulled from the game and benched. Wanya Morris took his place and finished out the game with Kingsley remaining on the sideline. Anyway, Matt Araiza pinned Cincy deep into their own territory via another solid punt, making that 2 great punts out of his 2 on the day. KC's defense also held once again when it mattered most. They allowed 1 first down to Gesicki on 3rd and 4, but on this 3rd down, safety Chamari Connor crept up from the secondary and blitzed Burrow, who was looking left. Never saw Chamari coming, and boom! Sack. Time to punt. Connor made yet another incredible play, and KC's offense then got the ball back with 2.5 minutes to go in the game, plus all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. Pacheco and Rice helped bring KC up to their own 42 as the warning hit, and then something horrible happened. Well, we know now that it's horrible, but at the time, weren't really sure. It didn't look that bad. Pacheco did get tackled awkwardly, folded, came up limping, went to the sideline, and in the moment, we're like, okay, maybe it was an ankle tweak or something like that. He was never seen back in the game again, and Mahomes threw the ball away to set up 3rd and 9, and a failed P-Ryan screen gained only 3 yards. So you got 4th and 6, way less than ideal, but hey, no problem, because Mahomes found Rashee Rice for a big gain, which put them deep in Cincinnati territory, well within Harrison Butker's field goal range. That would have then set up an easy game winner. They were trailing by just 2 points after all. However, Wanya Morris actually got flagged this time for illegal hands to the face on Trey Hendrickson. I hate this man. Another play where he impacted the game in a huge way. This made things 4th and 16. I mean, nearly impossible to convert. And with the Bengals rushing just 3, Mahomes bought time and threw up another one to Rice, who, as he went up to go get the ball, got hit early, clearly early, by a defensive back. He got hit in the head as well, by the way, and this, of course, drew an obvious DPI, defensive pass interference. This was as obvious as Wanya Morris's illegal hands to the face the play prior. Both calls were correct. I'm being very clear about that because Bengals fans melted down after this game, blaming the officiating, all kinds of stuff, dude. The whining and crying on Twitter was absolutely insane. insane. I've never seen a fan base want to win a regular season Super Bowl so bad. Well, too bad for you guys, because KC was then able to get a couple extra yards, and Harrison Butker, the highest paid / best kicker in the league, kicked the game winner right down the middle, 51 yards with ease to win it all. This ended the game with a final score of 26-25, a bit closer than my 31-24 score prediction, but hey, the Chiefs won. It was ugly. It wasn't pretty. It was stressful as hell, but a W is a W, and you beat the Bengals for the third time in a row, the second time with the healthy Burrow. And again, it was a close, down-to-the-wire game per usual that shows how tough the Bengals really play the Chiefs. Lou Anarumo is a hell of a defensive coordinator, almost seemingly getting in Mahomes' head and messing with him every time they play, since he abused the middle of the field with their tight ends, and that worked to perfection. In fact, that's a big weakness for the Chiefs through 2 weeks. They have given up 25 catches for 276 yards and a TD to tight ends, which is insane, absolutely brutal. However, Trent McDuffie shut Jamar Chase down, allowing just 1 reception for 4 yards and a fake DPI call that should have been OPI on Chase. And Chase was blanketed so badly that, again, he had a meltdown later on in the game. It was absolutely embarrassing for him, but I don't really care because that man talks a lot. And it's always nice to see a humble Jamar Chase after the game when the Bengals lose. Shamari Connor had a standout day with the scoop and score and key sack on third down to force a punt to allow KC's offense to get back on the field one last time. Chris Jones wrecked multiple plays, recording 3 QB hits, a sack and a half. No, a half a sack rather, and did way more than the stat sheet will ever show. The biggest struggle to me for KC's defense was, again, the yards given up to tight ends, and then Joshua Williams certainly struggled out there at times, giving up some key plays. Najee Johnson did allow a touchdown as well, so I think KC's secondary is still trying to figure it out a bit in the cornerback room as far as any non-Trent McDuffie defensive back goes. On special teams, though, Ariza was great, with Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson making a great stop at the 1-yard line on that punt. Butker racked up 8 total points, including the game winner, which was great per usual. The biggest concern by far to me is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. Mahomes made some key mistakes, yes, for sure, but I think he was also shook because Kinglsey Suamataia had a 26.4 pass blocking grade per PFF, the worst of any lineman by a landslide. He allowed 4 pressures, maybe even more to be honest. 2 sacks, was flagged twice at least for holding, and really affected the flow of the offense in some crucial moments. Now, Trey Hendrickson is one of the quickest pass rushers in the league off the line, one of the best in the business, so it's not like Kinglsey was getting worked over by some bum. But Kingsley's got to work through this and grow as much as humanly possible, or the Chiefs need to go and get Donovan Smith right now. The coaches could also set Kinglsey up for a bit more success. Give him some better chip help or tight end help. I don't know what you got to do, but you need to give the man some help over there if he's struggling that badly. Andy Reid actually said today that with Kinglsey getting benched at the end, sometimes it's just better to take a step back and reflect, and he's not sure if Kinglsey will start this week or not. That's up in the air, and whatever decision they go with, whether it's Kinglsey or Wanya Morris, is going to be the right one. It wasn't all on Kinglsey, though. Mahomes threw 2 INTs in this game and missed some reads. He knows he's got to be better for sure. And again, some of that credit does go to the Bengals defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo. He's one of the best in the business and has more wins than losses against Mahomes for a reason. Now, the biggest concern by far, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, is going to be the running back room, because that injury I mentioned of Isiah Pacheco at the end of the game earlier, well, it turns out he broke his fibula on that play. And depending on the severity of where the break was and what else tore, that's going to affect his timeline to return. Could be 4 to 8 weeks. Some said up to 12 weeks. We got a little bit of good news here, I think. Jeremy Fowler reported this afternoon that Pacheco is actually expected to miss approximately 6 to 8 weeks. So it's not as quick as 4, but not as long as 12. That would put him back sometime around mid-November. That means the Chiefs need help in the running back room when he's out. Steele and Pirine alone is not going to cut it. Steele is a rookie that lacks elite burst, though I anticipate he will play a nice role in the offense and even very quickly here see an increased role. Pirine has only been here a few weeks and is more of a third down back, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on the NFI list until at least week 4. In a perfect world, he is able to work through those mental health issues and returns to play week 5. And then Casey just needs a couple weeks in the meantime to get by until his return. CEH isn't Pacheco though, but he's serviceable and you can use him to share the load with Steele. However, Andy Reid said today, while he's around and in the building, he didn't give an answer one way or another if CEH's return would be possible by week 5. He said he's going to go with the guys he's got in his room, but Brett Veach is going through a list of names for other potential options. Now, they have Keontae Ingram and Amani Bailey on the practice squad, so maybe one of them could get called up or signed to the roster for a bit, or they bring in somebody else from the outside to fill in a much-needed hole. Well, what if I told you that a very familiar face was actually coming in for a visit tomorrow? Former Chiefs running back Kareem Hunt, to be exact. The back, they drafted in the 3rd round of the 2017 draft and got released in the back half of 2018 due to off-the-field issues he lied about. Yeah, he's indeed coming in for a visit tomorrow per Adam Schefter. He echoed Jeremy Fowler here on Pacheco's timeline of 6 to 8 weeks to return, then said, quote, the Chiefs are bringing their former running back Kareem Hunt back to KC for a visit on Tuesday per league sources. Hunt could help fill the Chiefs running back void. Well, that is certainly surprising, but maybe time heals old wounds. Then when you combine that with sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, maybe Clark Hunt would be willing to give Kareem Hunt a second chance here, considering they are attempting a three-peat. Hunt is not who he once was at 29 years old, but has been productive with the Browns since 2019. He had a career low 3.0 yards per carry last season, but a career high 9 rushing touchdowns. 400 yards on the ground, though, a little bit through the air. They didn't use him much through the air last season, but he can still do that. So this is a guy that could definitely contribute, and you could rotate him in as needed with Carson Steele and maybe also CEH if he returns. Then you'll have P. Ryan in the mix as well. The only real problem I see here is with Kareem Hunt still being a free agent. Is he football ready for this upcoming game if he was to sign with the team? The answer is probably not. It's going to take him a little bit to get ramped up, but he could get up to speed rather quickly and certainly find himself in the rotation sooner rather than later. And with all that being said, what are your thoughts on a potential Kareem Hunt reunion? He balled out with the Chiefs when he was here. We know that. And the Browns are not the Chiefs, so I would expect him to have a little bit more success here if he returns this season than he did last. But let me know, do you think a return is actually legitimately possible? I know there's a visit, but let me know your thoughts on that and your biggest takeaways and concerns from this win over the Bengals. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?